It's 3 p.m., you already had lunch, and suddenly your brain is screaming for chips. Or maybe it's chocolate right after a fight with your partner. Or that weird carb hunger the morning after a bad night's sleep, when nothing but bread will do. It feels specific, like your body is sending you a precise message about exactly what it needs. So is it? Is your body actually diagnosing a nutrient gap? Or is something else hijacking the signal? Turns out there's a hidden overlap in your brain between the system that tracks real hunger and the system that chases reward, and once you see how they get tangled, a craving stops feeling like a mystery. So here's the real question this video answers. When a craving hits out of nowhere, is your body actually telling you something, or just tricking you into thinking it is? Here's what makes it so convincing. It never feels vague. It doesn't just say eat something. It names a food, exact and specific, like an order from headquarters. That precision is exactly why people trust it. So most of us land in one of two camps. Either the body truly knows what it's missing, or we've simply got no self-control. But both of those miss what's actually happening underneath. Let's start where the craving actually starts. Not with the food, with a signal, somewhere deep in the body, that something is slightly off. Not chips off. Not chocolate off, just off. Your blood sugar, your hydration, your stress hormones, your sleep-driven hunger hormones, they all report into the same control room in your brain. Think of it like a single alarm panel wired to 5 different sensors. When any one of those sensors trips, the same general alarm goes off. The brain doesn't get a detailed report. It gets a blinking red light that just says attention needed. The fastest sensor to trip is blood sugar. This is the 3 p.m. crash. You had lunch, your stomach isn't empty, but a few hours in, your blood sugar quietly dips. And here's the strange part. Your brain reads that dip almost exactly the way it reads an empty stomach. Same urgency, same pull, same sense that you need fuel right now. Your body isn't scanning its cells for a chocolate shortage. It's noticing a dip in available energy and firing the oldest alarm it has, the one built for actual starvation. Except this time it's responding to a much smaller, much more temporary blip. Now take a slower sensor, one that doesn't trip in minutes but builds overnight, sleep. When you don't get enough, 2 hormones drift out of their normal rhythm. Ghrelin, which tells your brain you're hungry, rises higher than it should. Leptin, which tells your brain you're full, drops lower than it should. So the next day, you're not just a little more tired, you're chemically primed to feel hungrier than your body actually needs to be. This is why the morning after a rough night, plain hunger doesn't cut it. Only bread will do. Only something dense and carb-heavy feels like it will fill the hole. That hole isn't really about bread. It's 2 hormones pulling in opposite directions, and your brain trying to close the gap the fastest way it knows how. Then there's a completely different kind of trigger, one that has nothing to do with food at all in its origin: stress. When you're stuck in a tense meeting or in the middle of an argument, your body releases cortisol. Cortisol's job is to prepare you for a threat, sharpen focus, mobilize energy. But here's the tangle. The same neural circuitry that processes hunger also processes this stress response. So the brain, flooded with cortisol, starts reading tension as if it were an energy demand. That's why a stressful call so often ends with a hand reaching into a bag of chips. It's not that your body suddenly needs sodium. It's that stress hijacked hunger's wiring and rerouted the alarm toward food. Even more revealing is the alarm that isn't about food at all, not even loosely. Dehydration produces sensations that overlap heavily with hunger: mild fatigue, a slight headache, a gnawing sense of needing something. Your brain, which shares circuitry between thirst and hunger, sometimes mislabels one as the other. So you feel like eating when what your body actually flagged was thirst. This is one of the clearest proofs that a craving isn't a precise nutrient request. If your body can't even reliably tell the difference between needing water and needing food, it definitely isn't sending you a coded message about needing exactly 1 bag of salty chips. So now you have this vague, generalized alarm, triggered by any one of these systems: blood sugar, sleep hormones, stress, hydration. It's just noise at this point, a general sense of something is off. This is where the second half of the mechanism kicks in, and it's the part that actually explains the specificity. Your brain doesn't like sitting in vague discomfort. It wants a fast resolution. So it reaches into memory, specifically into your dopamine reward circuit, and pulls up whatever food has reliably delivered relief before. If chips calmed you down after stressful days in the past, chips become the answer your brain reaches for now. If ice cream soothed a rough emotional night once, your brain files that away as a known fix. This is why the late-night snack pull can hit even after a filling dinner, and why an emotionally draining day can summon a very specific comfort food. It's not your stomach requesting nutrients, it's your reward system matching a vague alarm to the fastest historical solution. There is one case worth pausing on, because it doesn't fit neatly into the disguise category. In the days before a period, hormonal shifts can genuinely influence craving intensity, including a real pull toward chocolate. This is closer to an actual body-driven signal. But even here, it isn't a precise nutrient order. It's still layered onto the same hunger and reward overlap, just with an extra hormonal push behind it. Which brings us to the most useful distinction hiding inside all of this. True hunger tends to build slowly and steadily, and it doesn't care what specific food you offer it. Almost anything sounds appealing. A hijacked craving behaves differently. It often has a strange rigidity to it, chips and only chips, chocolate and only chocolate, and it can shift or fade entirely once the actual trigger underneath gets addressed. That difference in behavior is the clue that reveals which kind of signal you're actually dealing with. Here's the part that actually matters. Cravings have a built-in off switch, but it only works if you address what's actually happening underneath, instead of obeying the food demand sitting on top of it. Since a craving is so often a blood sugar dip, a cortisol spike, dehydration, or a sleep-driven hormone shift wearing a food costume, resolving that real condition underneath can change or weaken the craving itself, not through willpower, through information. So here's the test. The next time a craving hits out of nowhere, chips at 3 p.m., chocolate after a tense exchange, bread the morning after a rough night, don't answer it immediately. Pause for about 10 minutes. Drink a full glass of water. That's the whole first move. No complicated ritual, no app, no tracking, just water and a short window of time. Because thirst and a mild blood sugar dip travel through the same signaling system as hunger. Hydrating first gives your brain a chance to show you what it was actually responding to. Watch what happens in that window. If the craving fades, or even just softens at the edges, that's meaningful. It means the alarm was never really about chips or chocolate. It was thirst, or a small dip in blood sugar, speaking through a system that doesn't know how to say thirsty. It only knows how to say hungry. You just watched a craving dissolve because you addressed the actual trigger instead of the costume it was wearing. If the craving stays exactly the same, that matters too, just differently. It doesn't mean you failed the test or that your body was lying. It means whatever is underneath, real stress, a sleep deficit, a hormonal shift, wasn't resolved by water alone. But something valuable already happened. You created a gap between the signal and the reaction, and in that gap, you get to choose. Maybe you still want the chocolate after the stressful exchange. Fine. Now you're choosing it with a clear head, deciding what and how much, instead of grabbing it mid-spiral on autopilot. The goal was never to make cravings disappear. The goal was to see them clearly enough to respond on purpose. And here's the piece worth sitting with. None of this means your body is broken or working against you, or that you lack discipline. It means your body noticed something real, low blood sugar, rising stress, a night of bad sleep, and reached for the fastest tool it had to resolve it, a food memory tied to comfort or energy. That's not malfunction. That's a fast, slightly clumsy problem-solving system, doing its best with limited information. The craving was never a lie, it was just misnamed. Over the next week, without trying to fix anything, just notice. Notice which cravings soften after the water pause, and which stay solid no matter what. You might find the 3 p.m. chip pull responds almost every time, because it's often a simple blood sugar dip. You might find the craving after a hard conversation barely moves, because stress runs deeper than hydration can reach in 10 minutes. There's no perfect score here, no outcome to chase. You're just building a private map of your own triggers, one glass of water at a time. So go back to that moment. 3 p.m., lunch already eaten, and your brain's screaming for chips. It felt like a precise order from your body, like it knew exactly what it needed. But now you can see what was actually happening underneath. A blood sugar dip, a cortisol spike from an argument, a ghrelin and leptin imbalance from a short night of sleep. None of it was a nutrient SOS. It was a stress or sleep signal, wearing a snack costume, using the only language your brain had on hand. You don't have to solve it every time. You just have to pause long enough to ask what it's really wearing underneath.